Let's talk about some of the stuff that's going on page 12. And as we talk about this on Skype, it becomes really apparent that we have to have the same kind of vocabulary. So I thought I would spend a little time reviewing some of the basic concepts here. So here's some staff paper, sometimes called manuscript paper. And if you don't have any, you can make some of it on your own. All you do is take a blank sheet of paper and a ruler, and you create or draw 5 lines, 5 parallel lines, which when you do that will produce 4 spaces in between each of the lines. Then, this kind of thing is called a staff. So the 5 lines and 4 spaces is a staff. S-T-A-F-F. And what we can do with the staff is we can divide it up into measures. A measure, let me write that word down. A measure, M-E-A, S-U-R-E, is also synonymous, or another word that's used for measure is a bar. Not a bar that you go into to get a drink, or a bar that you use for your stretching. It's a bar, which means a measure. So a bar line is a line that goes across the parallel lines and divides the parallel lines, the staff that is, into a measure. So let me create 2 measures. 1, 2, 2 measures. And these are called, these vertical lines here are called bar lines. B-A-R-L-I-N-E-S, bar lines. There are different types of bar lines. The bar line that's used to separate the staff into measures, sometimes called a single bar. And a double bar is a bar placed at the end, like that, to show that that's where the piece has ended. Oftentimes, the double bar will be a little bit thicker on one side, like the back side. That's because there's also another type of double bar that's used to separate different sections of a piece of music. But we won't see that in the pieces that you have in this book. But for larger pieces of music, we'll see double bars that just separate sections. For now, a double bar will mean the end of the piece. Some other types of bar lines, the single bar, the double bar, it's also a bar that would be used for repeats. And what that will look like is there'll be a single bar line, and then there'll be 2 dots, which means that's the beginning of the part that's going to be repeated. Maybe we have a bar and a bar, like 2 measures, and the 3rd measure, and then the 4th measure, we have 2 dots to go this way, which means when we get to this point, we're going to repeat back to here. So there are end repeats and beginning repeats. So like I'm trying to say, there's many different kinds of bar lines. But basically the function is to separate the staff into measures. Now, let's talk more about the staff a little bit. The right hand typically plays in the G clef. That means we put a symbol here, and see if I keep my camera from falling over. And this symbol is referred to as a G clef for the right hand. The left hand would typically be playing in the F clef. Now, when I was first studying music, I thought that's all that existed just a G clef and an F clef. But in actuality, there's probably about 10 different types of clefs. And I could name them all for you, but I'd have to look them up. They're primarily for different instruments that are used in a symphonic orchestra, like the alto, the alto violin, the cello. They play in different instruments play in different clefs. For the piano, we need these two, the G clef and the F clef. And in fact, they're so commonly used together that we draw a line here, and we sometimes put a curly brace to indicate that these two staffs are going to go together. And that's given a special name. These two staffs together are called the grand staff. G-R-A-N-D, staff, S-T-A-F-F. So let's go back to your music in your book. And you see we have a staff, we have another staff, we have them tied together. This is called a grand staff, two together. We have a G clef for the right hand, and we have an F clef for the left hand. Now, just to be clear, this is not a rule that happens 100% of the time. Sometimes, and quite often actually, your left hand will be playing up in here, and sometimes your right hand will be playing down in here. But typically, especially in the earlier pieces that you're going to be studying, G clef for the right hand, F clef for the left hand. Now, names of notes. We'll do this really briefly, because I want to make this a short video, and then I want to play for you a little bit. So, names of notes. What's really, really cool about staff is you can write notes on here. So this will be, this bottom line here, will be an E. Also, you'll note that I'm not writing like a circle, and then filling it in. I learned this in my arrangement courses, that this is much harder to erase if you make a mistake. This is much easier to erase. Also, the spaces between how much room you have to write is not all that great. So just a little diagonal line will be sufficient. So there's an E. If I go one note lower, that's a D. And usually we don't write the names and clutter the music with the names of the notes, but I'll do it for now. If we put one little line below, by the way, this little line below or above is called a ledger line, just to really bombard you with all kinds of words. L-E-D-G-E-R is the name of these little lines that go above or below, just to extend the staff. And so if I go one note below the D, that is a C. Now again, a cool thing, if I start in the F clef, this top line is an A, one note above it is a B, and one note above that, here's my little ledger line again, is a C. So we note that the C is the one note that appears in the space between the two. It's right in the middle, and that C is oftentimes called, or that's the reason why it's called middle C. It's the one symbol that is the same note on the keyboard or on the instrument in both staffs. Okay, let me play the piece for you. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, two, 1, 2, 3, 4. have fun with all this stuff. And of course, keep practicing.